I don't want to overthink this, okay? We loved interacting with all of you. So when the 49ers play, we're going to gather the next day. I'm going to ask the same question every time. What'd you think? So what'd you think?
Impressive. To win in any fashion on the road in a divisional game is impressive. Did Brock Purdy leave a couple out there? Sure.
Yep.
Did the defense play a little bit too milquetoast and not really exert itself in the first half? Sure. But when the plays needed to be made, they made the plays, and it started at the end of the first half where they got the touchdown down 7, where a field goal was not going to be. It might have been good enough to still win the game, but you get the touchdown there, knowing the Rams get the ball to start, then you get the stop, and ultimately you flip the game on the INT. It's a win. You can't look at a win on a Monday and think any bad things about it, in my opinion. So the overarching opinion is you got to win. You got to win on the road, and that's a good thing.
Well, I look at it this way, too. Like, sometimes my mind goes back, and please do not take this as me comparing Brock Purdy to Steve Young and Joe Montana. But I made the statement on Friday that I think that this is the best roster since 1994 for the San Francisco 49ers, and I do believe that. And shout out to all of you who came back, responded to that statement and said, "You're a homer. They were so good in 88. Let me say it slower. The best roster since 1994. I very much believe the 49ers are that. So if we're going to put them on that kind of a plane, that kind of a roster, let's go back to other times in history when we felt that way and think about what 49ers Sundays were like. We would wake up, you would watch the game, and you would expect 31-10. That's what you would expect. But it wasn't always that. The real mark of a great football team is not we can beat you 31-10 every time. It's when a particular Sunday develops where it doesn't look like you've got all your best stuff working and you still walk away with a win, and quite frankly, in many ways, a double-digit win. If you go on the road against a divisional opponent, a Super Bowl champion quarterback, and with 4 seconds left in the game, you're up by 10, and you also look at the game and go, you didn't play very well. Well, congratulations, you're looking at a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
Because that's how games end when you don't play well. You only win by 7 as opposed to 23.
As opposed to losing by 3 or losing by
Correct.
10 or losing in some fashion where you have to look back and say, how did we lose to this team? We should have been 10 points better than them, and they were 10 points better until the end, and you wound up winning by 7. But after they got that pick off the Williams deflection, and they went down and took the 3-point lead, and then you held the Rams on the next sequence, and then you scored the touchdown, you go up 10. At that point, you felt like the game, not that it was over, but you had the game in your control, and things were going the way you expected them to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm sure the thought crossed many of your minds, mine too. 10-point lead at SoFi in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Ha! What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong here? I don't see anything that could go wrong. That crossed my mind. But I think you review every game afterwards and go, was there ever a moment where you truly went, oh my God, they might lose? I'd say no. Even when they were down 17-10. Did it cross your mind today might be upset Sunday?
No, it didn't. And especially when, the Niners start to march down the field and you're thinking, okay, we got 3 covered. Can they get 7? And if you go in down 17-13, even if the Rams come out and they score a touchdown, you're down 24-13 early in the third, I still wouldn't feel like it was over because the Niners offense was pretty good in the first half. They were moving the ball. Yeah. The reasons why they didn't move the ball were pretty simple to correct, I think. And you looked at the way the game was going. It didn't feel like you were out of control and Brock Purdy was shaky and you were fumbling it and throwing interceptions. You weren't. And, the Rams in the first half offensively were good. And you had a hard time stopping them. And then you came out in the third quarter and Steve Wilks and company made the adjustment. And you started to bring a little bit more pressure, some exotic blitzes, and you got Matthew Stafford a little bit more uncomfortable. And also the coverage-wise, you started to roll up on guys a little bit quicker, and you made things tougher on the Rams offense. And so at that point, it was a tie game, and the Niners go up 20-17 off the pick, And at that point, you felt like they were in control of the game.
Yeah, look, I don't think the 49ers are going 17-0 this year, but I'm very I'm mindful of when a team that anybody thinks is really, really good and expected to win by a lot. 7-point favorite, 7.5 for everybody, whatever.
Got there early.
Whatever. When you're expected to win, especially on the road like that, I'm mindful of, okay, the game has started and they don't quite look like you want them to look. What happens next? Go back to Atlanta last year. 49ers showed up, everybody expected a win, and they looked like crap. And it crosses your mind, oof, they're sleepy, something's out of sync, Marcus Mariota looks like a player all of a sudden. What's going on here? Oh, I'm sure they'll adjust. And then you're down by 7. And you're like, okay, they'll adjust. And then you're down by 14. You're like, not today, right? No, you're not going to lose. And then you're like, oh my God, they never got there. That's the mark. And by the way, that was Jimmy's 49ers.
Sure.
And
second half of a back-to-back on the road.
Absolutely. A little bit later in the season. I forget what week exactly that was. Feels like 5, 6. I can't remember exactly where it was. Okay, but that's what I think can happen if the team is not fully operational. I am here for at least 4 ugly wins this year. And I don't even know if this one qualifies.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they scored 30 points.
You didn't turn the ball over at all.
Didn't turn it over.
Right?
I just mean, you know what I mean by ugly. Ugly, also known as not pretty. Like last week was pretty.
Right.
Last week was prettier.
You could be not pretty and still not be ugly.
Yeah.
You could be all right. And this was better than all right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on a scale of 0 to supermodel, this was not a 10. It certainly wasn't a 1 or a 2. This game was probably a 6. Good solid 6.
Looks pretty now, though.
Good personality.
2-0.
Fun to hang out with.
Very much so.
Studious and smart.
3 weeks at Levi's now.
Right.
3 weeks at Levi's, and the next 2, you're going to be a monster favorite.
And 2-1 over the next 3, while you want to get greedy and think about 5-0, and then you think about 17-0, and then you dream about 20-0. 2-1. I mean, 2-1 would be okay, except for the fact that the one loss might be the one that you need the most.
Well, I actually look at I don't even know if they quote need it, but I'm
for home field.
Right, I'm hesitant to get excited about 2-1 because look, I don't want to get dismissive. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. The scenarios that would lead to losses in either of the next 2 games, I'm having a hard time finding them. Like they are so much better than these 2 football teams. Markedly better. These next 2 quarterbacks coming in are not Matt Stafford's. They just aren't. And now there's no Saquon. That's official, by the way. Barkley is out 3 weeks, maybe 2, but probably 3 games. There's no Saquon Barkley. It'll be Breida the Cheetah out of the backfield for the most part for the Giants on Thursday night. They've got a short turnaround after, keep in mind, what they had to exert in the second half to win that game in Arizona yesterday. Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself. But
it's a Victory Monday. We can worry about that.
Yeah, we can worry about it later, but the Niners should absolutely be 4-0 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at 3-0 on Thursday, and we'll get into it tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday live from the Hilton in Santa Clara. We can pour through all of the pregame machinations of a Giants game at home on a short week. It's a short week for both teams, so not a terrible time to have a Thursday game when, it's still pretty early in the year, and I know the Niners had to play their starters a lot more yesterday than maybe they would have dreamed about. If they would have had a 17-point lead, maybe things go differently in the fourth quarter, but you actually kind of needed to play all 4 quarters yesterday, but the Giants had to exert even a little bit more in their game just to get the win. They are staying in Arizona, so they won't have the travel component of coming all the way out from the East Coast, but you look at this spot on Thursday on a short week, this is the team and this is the spot you'd want to have on the short week.
You seen the spread yet?
Yes.
You saw it? Okay.
Yeah, I think it's up to 10.
10.5.
10.5 now, yeah.
Yeah, double-digit favorite, and I would expect the same the following week, and that's without knowing, who's healthy, who's not, and whatnot, but the Arizona Cardinals come in the week after that. Here's what I will say about Brock Purdy. And I thought Kyle Shanahan highlighted this. There's no doubt he missed 3 downfield throws. And I know after the game, he spoke about needing to get better at that, and there's no question, right? Like, you got to get better at that. However, if you're going to miss those, he missed them long, which was both effective and funny, I thought. Effective in a way of, like, he did not bring turnovers into play, and also funny because everyone has talked all about arm strength.
Sure.
Well, if he's overthrowing the long throws, well, that's a hell of a lot better than underthrowing the long throws, I guess.
Yeah.
But here's what I'll say about Brock, because I do remember a lot of talk before the year started about the interceptions that Brock got away with last year. Oh, we'd be feeling different if in Seattle and Dallas, if those DBs could have held on to those would-be turnover-worthy throws that Brock Purdy threw out there. Whatever you want to say about Brock this year, whether it's arm strength, whether it's overthrowing a few deep balls, what the 49ers have right now, and this to me is in ink, what they have is exactly what Kyle Shanahan has been begging for 6 years. And it is somebody who is keenly aware of how to not turn the ball over. And if he does that throughout the year, they are winning it all. I'm telling you that. If this guy continues to take care of the ball the way he is right now, the 49ers are going to be nearly impossible to beat. I know that one of them wasn't Stafford's fault, but he played a really good game yesterday. He put the fear into the 49ers, but he turned it over twice, and that was the difference in the game. That's what Kyle's been waiting for.
Yeah.
That's the last thing he wanted Jimmy to be able to do, and Jimmy could never do it. And now they got somebody who can.
Right, and I saw the frustration on Kyle's face, and through the laminated play sheet, you could tell, especially on the throw to Debo, where it was a busted coverage. I'm just looking at the play right now, and the Rams have 4 guys underneath covering 2 receivers, and Debo's got about a 3 or 4 yard cushion on the last defender, and that's the one where all you have to do is put a little bit of air under it. Throw that thing to the end zone with some air, but Brock threw it on too much of a line, and that's something that he'll adjust to as he gets more comfortable being back. But ultimately, it didn't cost you. You still won the game, but I'm sure Debo, and even more so Brock and Kyle, they would have wanted to have that one back.
It's frustrating, but by the same token, you look at these games at the end, you're like, oh, Brock was just he was kind of so-so today. He wasn't bad, but it wasn't, as we said, a resume game. They were trailing. There was a lot of things that were uncomfortable. And then what do you get at the end of the game? 30 points.
Yeah. Again.
The exact same total that they had the week before. So how bad could it be? And tucked into there is a big old compliment. If the 49ers have reached a point where a bad game for the quarterback leads to 30,
you're in a pretty good spot.
That's a hell of a bar. He's
one of, I think, 7 quarterbacks so far to play 2 games and not have an interception. So maybe he's in his own little survivor league in terms of who could be the last QB to throw a pick. You've got Stroud and Herbert, Mayfield and Geno, Dak and Love, and Josh Dobbs of Arizona.
Wow.
No picks. The
What
no
a
pick
list.
club. I know,
What
right?
a list.
The no pick club.
Stroud in his first 2 games is one of the guys.
Herbert, also 0-2, no picks.
Oh.
Baker's undefeated. Baker. He is good.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
undefeated.
Yeah.
You can't be any better than 2-0 after 2 games.
You cannot.
Put some respect on that man's name.
Unlikely, but anyway.